Hello and welcome to the Box Project presentation. My name is Alex Cottrell. I am a Miami University Commerce student. I will be graduating this upcoming December. I am currently a supervisor of receiving and inventory at a local Walmart. It's a pretty stressful job, but it fits well with what I've been learning over the last few years in school. So it's nice to be able to apply what I've learned and use it on a daily basis. My hobbies include, when I have the time to anyway, playing my guitar or riding my motorcycle. I also like to develop new barbecue sauces and seasonings, kind of experiment with outdoors cooking. For this project, I had originally had two ideas, both of which were for my client, Dr. Bain, who I had planned on working with for a while now. I've had her for several classes over the years, so I already had a pretty good understanding of things that she may enjoy or have a need for. So going in knowing that, I had designed two boxes, which will be on the next screen for you to see. The first one was a dog box for her dogs, who would include a area to store toys and a coat hanger like background, which would allow for like hanging of leashes or jackets, something like that. That way they can just be grabbed on the go when it's time for a walk. Overall, the client decided to go with the barbecue box. The theme was one of, a patriotic sense, which overall is, it makes sense. The American barbecue is one type of food that is solely an American thing, even back to the days of George Washington. It is something that Americans have done and always done that's not necessarily a imported taste, I guess you could say. Originally, the barbecue box, was going to be made of a compressed wood box that was going to be reused or repurposed from a letter storage box that the Walmart craft department was throwing away because they had gotten a new one. However, I realized that the compressed wood would not stand up to washing, so I was staring at my wall until I had an idea, and I realized that I had an old skid that two motorcycle tires had come in on, and it actually worked out really well. The wood was thin enough to where the box wasn't bulky, but at the same time it's very strong and gave a good surface area. And also, one of the things that I had realized adaptation wise was that if there was a spill, there would be a need to wash the box out, but at the same time, barbecue sauce is kind of chunky, so you almost have to spray it out with like a sink wand or something. With that in mind, I realized how big of a pain it would be to hold the box upside down and try to see up in there to get all of it out. So I designed the floor of it to be just about a quarter of an inch shorter than the walls, to almost act as like a drain, if you will. Also, the size of the box was based off the standard size mason jars. This is what I put my barbecue sauce in when I cook it at home. So with that in mind, I made it big enough to where it could hold one sauce at a time or two sauces at a time, depending on, one sauce, a couple canisters of seasoning, a small flashlight, a meat thermometer, and a marinade injector. Or if you didn't include the seasonings, you can have two jars of barbecue sauce with the other various tools to go along with it. That way the box can just be carried out to the grill or the fire pit or the smoke or whatever you want to do, and all your supplies are right there in hand. Alright, on this page you can see the original designs. Well, they're not technically the original ones. The originals were drawn onto a piece of paper in a mechanical drawing, like blueprint format, the 3D blueprints. However, upon testing my camera before my Skype call with Dr. Bain, I noticed that the pencil would not come through in a clear enough manner that would be presentable. So what I did is I took the basic concept and I put it into a paint screen. That way the high contrast between the white and the black on a lit screen would show through more visibly, and I can better explain my ideas, other than looking at a piece of paper and trying to focus on the little pin marks that there was. With barbecue sauce in mind, and the fact that barbecuing is one of America's only foods that were solely, an American thing, where British visitors would come over and they would go home and talk about how Americans would have a party, which was known as a barbecue, and it was, of course, spelled differently at the time and had different meanings. However, the idea was the same. They would dig a big hole in the ground and throw some fire in there, and they would roast an entire pig, and it would be their barbecue. And one gentleman had actually noted that it is a party of Americans that generally ended in intoxication. Not that everyone that has a barbecue these days does that, but it's just interesting to see how, 200 years later, the idea of a barbecue, which is the American social gathering where we share food and fellowship, still has not changed much in the idea. However, the technology has obviously changed, as a grill is a lot easier to fire up than a fire pit, and doesn't take nearly as long to cook. So with that in mind, the theme of the box was the patriotic colors, the colors of the American flag. Obviously, there's a learning curve there. The paint, I tried to do straight lines with paint tape, but as you can see in the image here, the final product, some of the paint tape did not seal down all the way, and it caused some running, and due to some time restrictions I was unable to fix those. But the general point is that it's a patriotic design. And also, when I was painting it, I was thinking, the barbecue is one of America's oldest pastimes, so what I did was I left only one layer of paint on to kind of give the box an older, kind of rustic look. And then as far as the design features go, I made the walls slightly shorter than the product that goes inside of them. That way you're not trying to grab it with your fingertips. You can actually grab the jar and have a good hold on it, not worry about dropping it or, squishing your fingers trying to get it out. And also, there is a slight shortage on the floorboard of the box that allows for draining. Have you, use spilled barbecue sauce or seasoning or something, you can just take a sink wand and wash it out and drain it out pretty easily. As mentioned before, the box is made out of an old skid that some motorcycle tires came in on. After measuring and cutting out the boards, I decided that using a adhesive like Elmer's wood glue would be a better option for this box. The concern being that if a nail or screw was driven into wood on a thin plane, that it might cause splitting or cracking, which I did not want. It may have been stronger in the long run to use screws, but with cracks in the wood or splits, the longevity of the box would be more in danger that way than if it were to come apart and then we could re-glue it down the road. Also, what I wanted to mention here too is after, I don't have a picture of this, but after the wood was cut out, I gave it a good sanding all around. We don't want to have splinters or rough spots in the wood, which is very important. It helps the paint stick better, and it's obviously, it's better. No one wants to get a big old splinter in their fingers. So obviously the box seems pretty simple in design and use. However, going through the process, I did learn a lot about the choices that a strategic manager might have to make during the course of product development or marketing research, manufacturing. So my biggest suggestion to anyone wanting to do this project in the future is to have the willingness and the immediate ability to adopt when something changes, because it will happen no matter how solid your plan is. trying to force the original plan to work may be more stressful and end in a worse result than if you adapt on the fly and learn, from the mistakes that are rolling along or from the bumps that you come across. One of the future applications that I personally received out of this box is to teach leaders how to go deeper into considering their options. So, you might have one variable that you consider while you're originally designing the box. However, if you add variables within the variables and you learn how to tie them together in a big, almost like a plot pattern map. If you make choice A, then you go down this way, and then you have choices C and D, and then you go down one of those. Almost string together like a map. The project will be able to be made under budget and within time restrictions, while at the same time meeting the client's overall needs or desires. I think this is one of the skills that are well overlooked and underappreciated, really, when it comes to making decisions as a manager. You might be able to sit down in an office room and plan things out and have a good plan ready. However, having a sub plan or plan B, or however you want to name it, ready to go just in case something happens on the fly, is something that is extremely important. And this really took away for me on this project, because so many speed bumps had come up along the way. It wasn't necessarily issues I had building the box, but as I was coming along and I would notice things like in the design, like with the drain feature, I hadn't originally thought, like, hey, what if something gets in the box and it needs washed out? That wasn't something that was in the original design. It was an adaptation that I made on the fly. Same with the materials that were used. The original one was a compressed wood. I hadn't really thought about washing the box at the time. I was just like, hey, you're going to carry stuff in it, and that's it. It doesn't necessarily have to be, something that's durable to the point of where if you're going to get it wet, it's not going to expand and get ruined. However, as I put more thought into it, it's like, hey, wait, what if, this happens, or what if this happens? Then I realized that the box might need washed, and compressed wood just would not do the trick. So what would I do differently? Well, there's a little bit of a toss-up in this question, because, I would do everything different now that I have time to go back and kind of look at the box and be like, hey, what if I did this instead of this? Or what if I had, made the colors this instead of this? Or what if I had made the walls just a little bit taller? At the same time, I wouldn't change anything at all, because this is why we have different generations of products. The designers learn new tricks as they go, and they add features, subtract features, alter the features in such a way that the overall product stays the same, but as the generations go on, you can see the improvements that they've made to it. So I wouldn't change anything, but at the same time, if I was to make a second generation box, I would change everything, if that makes sense. It's more or less every time you make a design change, it presents new flaws and improvements, and we must work on those, so it's a never-ending cycle. Overall, I would say the project was a success from a learning standpoint. I learned quite a bit, and hopefully Dr. Bam gets a good use lifetime out of the box. And also with the box is 2 separate barbecue sauces that will be coming. One for her, which is a sweet Kentucky whiskey barbecue sauce, and one for her husband, who's a fan of the spicy foods. He's going to get an experimental sauce that I'm working on now. I'm going to try to keep all natural ingredients and not just make it a bland heat. I'm going to try to keep it a flavorful heat. What I'm going to experiment with is dehydrating some various forms of pepper and making a homemade pepper powder. Along with that, they will get a sampling of a dry rub, mainly used for ribs. It works typically well with white meats, your pork meats, or your chicken, your poultries, your turkeys. Additionally, it also works rather well with fried hash browns, believe it or not. Adds a good seasoned flavor to them. So hopefully the project was a success as far as the product as much as it was for my learning end of the deal. Anyway, hopefully you enjoyed this presentation.